Hey, welcome to a special edition of Model Railroading Live. Who's Big Bill talking to? We're coming at you today at an earlier time and on a different day because our special guest of Who's Big Bill talking to happens to come from the UK, England, and it's what time is it there, Martin?
It's just gone at 8 o'clock in the
8
evening.
o'clock, 8 p.m. And here, as you guys can see, I have the setting sun here in Staten Island, New York. And isn't technology a wonderful thing?
It is amazing. Is
It
is
is.
the image okay? It looks a bit overexposed, or is it all right?
You're a little
Bro-
washed out.
Okay. Not really sure what I can do if I go a bit nearer. Uh, okay. Not much I can. Oh, yeah. Just got too much light. Hang on. I'll move that over there. Is that a bit better? Okay. Well, we'll just have to go with that, I guess.
Okay. Well, our special guest is Martin Hughes, and Martin Hughes is not a model railroader. Not at all.
I'd
Martin.
like. I'd like to be.
Well, Martin has a unique channel. It's called Scale War Machines. Scale War Machines. And I came across Martin's channel. I was watching him do the Templar Knights, the bust of Sean Connery, and
Yep.
he was painting the face, and he was talking about how to do the colors and try to get the same texture. And then I started watching his other videos. And would you consider yourself a military modeler?
Yeah, I guess that's where the background comes from. Started when I was a young lad with aviation stuff. Um, Spitfires, Messerschmitts, that sort of thing. And then I moved more into tanks, I guess you could say, land warfare. But I'd love to do anything really if I had the time. I'd love to do civilian motorbikes, trains. I like doing figures and busts. It's just time. That's the only problem.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason why I was, as a model railroader, we model railroaders tend to, with the weathering and the realism, and then to see guys like yourself and others, that are into this, military modeling and the weathering and everything, is
Yeah.
like totally fascinating because you guys, I mean, I just fit. If you get a chance, it's scale machines. He just finished the diorama of the Vietnam era of the military vehicle and the rice paddy and the whole construction of it was like just totally amazing, and the deep work that you put into it. How long? How do you get the idea of doing something? Does it?
Inspiration? Mainly I've worked a lot with archive film in the past, so a lot of it comes from that. So the inspiration for that particular one was a reel of film from your own U.S. National Archives from Vietnam. So that kind of was whirling around in my head, and then the rest of it is just imagination. I mean, it's no different really to making a railroad layout.
Sure.
You just go for it, and kind of things happen as you go along. I had a rough idea, and if you follow the video series, there's 4 videos, you can see a kind of beginning, middle, and end. But stuff changed along the way, and generally, I tend to experiment on the go. So I'll try different things. I'm not afraid to do that on camera. And I think that's kind of the best style of modeling, is where people are just trying things out and it works. I don't profess to know everything, but I do profess to having fun and recording it and seeing what happens and to showing it.
Right. And so when you were doing that modeling, was it something that it was that you basically, oh, what's going on here?
What's up? Is it the
No, it's on my end. It's on
I'm just going to try one thing, Bill, and see if it makes a difference. If I turn that one on, if it evens everything out. Oh, it does a bit. Okay, that's a bit better.
Yeah.
Have you got a problem at your end, Bill? Yeah? Okay, cool.
Oh, Here we go. Here we go. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm just wanted to. Oh yeah, that's much better. I just wanted to make sure that we're out there broadcasting because I see 8 people watching, but I don't see anybody. I guess
Okay.
everybody's out doing shopping or something.
I put it out on my channel, but I put it for 9 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So
Oh, okay.
is it 3 p.m. now in where you
317.
are?
317. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So that was the mistake in the conversion to
Yeah.
UK time. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh. I was just chilling, relaxing, and then I saw Bill's email. I was like, "Oh, that's an hour early."
Yeah, well, Johnny was outside talking to the Amazon driver, and the guy said, "Well, I guess I better get going because I got to get back to work." And Johnny, oh, wait a minute, I got a show I got to do.
I'll tell you what. Well, if we're live, look, Bill, I'll just show you this
Sure.
to show that I do a bit of train stuff, but at
Hold
big
that up
scale.
again. Could you hold that up again?
So it's hang on, I'll probably drop it on camera now, but
No, that's
there
a
you go.
oh
BR52 German locomotive.
oh wow.
Yeah, so I do like trains. There's the tender. That goes with it, armored tender. So yeah, I do it. I just don't, I don't do the smaller stuff. I tend to do the bigger stuff. But yeah, I love it. I love all the weathering and all the effects. So I view the skills as universal.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I was just wondering how is it that you got into what you're doing now? I mean, was this something that you did at an early age as a kid growing up that you?
Yeah. So do you mean the just modeling in general, or
Yeah,
the
just
achievement?
modeling in general. And when did it transfer? When did it transfer?
Yeah. So I remember specifically, I must have been about 11, I think, maybe 10 or 11, and I built a Spitfire like many boys do in Britain. It was the first kind of iconic aircraft that I built, and then fairly rapidly I built a Jagdtiger, and my dad did the decals, so it was very much influenced from my dad, who used to be an aero modeler when he was younger. So that's where I started, and in all honesty, I never really stopped. So when I was trying to be a bit cooler in my adolescence and at university, I still did it, but I kept it quiet. I didn't really tell anyone. And I'd sneak off to the model shop and stuff. I hope no one saw me. But basically, as I got older, I just stopped caring and just told everyone about my hobbies. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and how did it morph into like where you are right now? I mean, with the military model, what was in the military in England?
Yeah, it was always military. I was never in the military. I was a cadet at school and stuff, but never. But I have worked a lot with the military in my previous career, so making films, TV films, and documentaries, and so I often got filmed with the US military a lot and filmed with the UK military a lot. So I had a bit of fun with that without any of the dangers or risks that our great service people take.
Right,
so.
right. But it's no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it was because of the modelling. It was always a dream to work in basically history and to work with kind of machines. And I was very lucky to do that for 20 years, really, and make films about all sorts of things: military vehicles, civilian stuff, science stuff, and history, a lot of history. So the two things went together perfectly: history and model making, and my career all went really well together, and I was really lucky.
Yeah, they meshed well together. We did a couple of years ago. We had the good fortune of interviewing a gentleman, Brian. I can't remember his last name, but anyway, he was sitting at his desk, and he was a modeler, HO scale modeler, and behind him on his credenza, his little shelf behind him, he had the Saturn rockets and the Apollo and the first Gemini and the whole 9 yards, and Mercury and all these. Said to him, in the Q&A, someone asked him, "Do you model those as well?" And he looked and he said, "Well, actually, and he didn't know how to phrase it. And I was like, "Well, do you model them? Do you model the NASA Space Center and stuff like that?" He goes, "No, I'm actually a rocket scientist." I said, "You're what?" And he goes, "I work for NASA. I'm a rocket scientist. I'm the guy that helps put those things up in the air."
Wow.
Then all of a sudden the Q&A blew up. We just everybody was like,
I'm not a rocket scientist, that's for sure.
I know. That's not, neither am I. I'm far from it. I mean, me and you went to 2 different schools together, you know. But, but it's just fascinating that you're able to, you know, because his hobby and his livelihood, you know, meshed together, and your hobby and your livelihood.
Oh, yes, it did, most definitely. And a lot of stuff was sold to America, particularly on Discovery and the American Heroes channel. So if anyone is watching and if anyone wants to guess, I made quite a few series. So you could have a guess. Lots of Nazi series and lots of kind of military type stuff. So have a guess. Okay. See if anyone gets one.
Okay. But getting back to the modeling thing, though, what is it that because you know, watching you blend colors, you know, like we have a guy, Ralph Renzetti here, who's an excellent model. I showed you his you know, Bond find with the DeLorean and everything.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Nice. Yeah, it was really nice. How is it that, you know, with your you know, what is it like when you said that you did the Vietnam, the diorama? Was that the exact way those figures, the guys that in the film or the photo that you extracted, was that exactly how they were sitting? I mean, or do you take literary license with it and say, okay, we're gonna, you know, manipulate this?
What in terms of
positioning,
the poses? Of
Yeah.
Oh, that's all largely made up. I mean, 2 of the figures came from the Academy kit, which is a Korean manufacturer, I think Academy is, and they were pretty good. And I adapted them with little miniature heads you can get from Hornet. And the other one, if you watch the first video, it shows I just sculpted it and I just kind of made it up using armatures. Obviously, the figures are a bit bigger than most railroad modelers would use.
Yeah.
But, so that enables a bit more custom building and stuff, but essentially the basic techniques really of painting figures are the same. You just adapt them. So if they're going to be tiny, you adapt it even more, I guess. But I've never done anything smaller than 1/72 really. So which is HO, a bit bigger than HO, is it?
Yeah, 1/87th is the scale for HO.
Okay, so a bit bigger.
Yeah, Nathan Hurt here says, Scale War Machines has inspired me to go out of my comfort zone and try doing some Rust-looking models.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, I like rusty stuff. And that was one of the most popular video is a rusty old Volkswagen Beetle. And I think a lot of people seem to like that one. And that was using the salt technique. But yeah, rust, and that again is something that will appeal to railroad modelers or you know, railway modelers in the UK. Is all the rust and weathering, streaks, all that sort of thing.
How do you go about doing your rust on your?
Well,
I know you said you use the salt.
Yeah, the salt's one way, chipping fluids, but generally most of it, something like I don't know, this kind of effect is mostly done with an airbrush, basically. So I use an airbrush a lot. So
you do.
Yeah, but then if you want to build up layers, often there's some sort of chipping element. So something like salt or a chipping medium or hairspray. I don't know if you guys know about that technique.
Yes,
so
we do.
Hairspray, you erode it with water and it takes away the top coat. So
right, and then you use your toothpick or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. You know, we're not too
do a lot of that, a lot of nuanced kind of spraying with browns, different types of browns. And oranges, funnily enough, a lot of oranges, and you can use oils on top as well for further.
Yeah, I cheat.
Further realism.
I cheat, Martin. I use sophisticated finishes.
Ah, yeah, well, that's good. I've got something over there, Scenic Rust, which I'm about to make a video about. So that's a finishing product. It's a chemical reaction. So I'm looking forward
Yeah,
to using it.
yeah, it works. It works absolutely. I mean,
Mm,
you know, when you first do it, you know, when I first did it, I wasn't aware. Like I slathered on the.
yeah.
Yeah. Hi, and we have Eric Hall, IMRR.com. Is today Wednesday night? No, we had two Wednesdays. This is the second Wednesday. No, for you guys tuning in a little late or coming in not knowing that we had this show, which you know I understand. We're talking. This is a special edition of Who's Big Bill Talking To on the Model Railroading Live. By the way, Model Railroading Live, the number one model railroading show in the world. We're speaking with Martin Hughes from England. He has a YouTube channel called Scale War Machines, also the same, a website by the same name, scalewarmachines.com. And we're interviewing him today because he's a military modeler, and it was something that I think would be interesting for all us railroad modelers and stuff. So with the weathering, with this sophisticated finishes, when I first used it, I wasn't sure how it worked, you know, and how the process and the chemical will work. So I did my bridge span, and I kind of like really slathered it on like a thick butter on a bread, hot bread.
Yeah.
And then I put the chemical on it, and I was like, whoa, that's really rough.
Well, I have to confess I've not used the chemical method. So, but I have heard that. So, a good friend of mine, a fellow modeler at the model club I go to, did an amazing pickup, a Chevy style pickup, and he used the chemical version, the Scenic Rust in this case, and he was explaining how it's kind of live and sort of still working. So I'm really excited to sort of try that and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I gather that less is more, I think.
That's what I've come to understand since now working with that chemical process. I've also done the with the you know the streaking, you know, putting the dots on
Yeah.
oil paints and then streaking down and that stuff. But I'm
This
kind
is
of
that's what I'm getting. I'm going to rust. So an old Ford Escort. So that's what I'm,
worth rusting.
yeah, it's a Mark One. So I don't think you guys had those in America, but yeah.
Nathan Hurd says I'm having a go at the salt method.
Yeah, well, go for it. I mean, it's pretty foolproof, really. It works really well. Yeah, I mean, just watch the video, search for salt chipping on YouTube. There are loads of other good videos as well, and it explains it. And it's really effective, surprisingly effective. You could also use something called UK modelers will know about this called Marmite, which is basically a Vegemite spread, so a bit like Vegemite in America, in Australia. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a yeasty kind of brown, and you could use that as well, and use hot water to get rid of it as well. So I should do a video on that at some point, but I haven't done it. Only so much time in the day.
Why that Northern Star? He wants to know. He says, do you use a UPM Apex airbrush?
A what? A UPM?
UMP Apex airbrush.
Oh, okay. So that must be Ultimate Modeling Products. No, I've got more airbrushes than it's healthy to own, I have to admit. I've got a lot of airbrushes now. Some of them are samples that I review, some are from my own collection. I don't use that one. I haven't tried it. I use Iwata's, I use Badger, I use Aztec, and Harder and Steenbeck. I will use any airbrush, really, partly because I'm interested in having content for the channel and trying them out, but partly because they're all really good, and they're good fun to use.
What, you know, Martin, when you're doing your models and tanks, what would you say? Is that your speciality? Is the tanks and the military vehicles?
Yeah, I would say that's where I've got the most experience. Since I started the YouTube channel, I've done a lot more figures and busts, mainly because they seem quite well received by the viewers. So obviously I'm keen to put out stuff that's enjoyable for people to watch. But yeah, mainly vehicles and tanks.
Well, so when you're doing a tank and you're going the process of building the tank as well, do you at any do you say, okay, I'm going to add this, you know, on to the tank? If do you have a 3D printer? That's a thing.
No, my little nephew's got one, and we're planning on putting it to good use for model making. So, in terms of what do you mean? In terms of paint finishes or details and stuff?
Details, you know, metal details works and stuff.
Yeah, I'll do whatever takes my fancy, really. I do like to upgrade it a bit, but I will make stuff just out of the box as well. But what I really enjoy is putting stowage and realistic equipment, particularly inside vehicles. So the ACAV was a great joy for that, trying to make things look lifelike.
Yeah, I saw the interior of that, and it was like it was, as we would say here in New York, that was off the hook.
Yeah, it was mad and really good fun, though. That's the important thing. It was good fun to do it. You know?
So it's the detailed work of like putting the cargo, putting the stuff on the vehicles itself to give it that real life look.
Yeah, two things: painting and making it lifelike.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy.
Do you with the tanks or the armor vehicles? Do you in your doing that? Do you stress to make it look like it's metal, like scoring it like weld marks?
Yeah. So the ACAV is a good example of that. There again, I used hairspray chipping, but because it was an aluminium vehicle, effectively, I sprayed it in silver and then chipped it with scratches and stuff. So yeah, I particularly like to give the false impression of the medium that the vehicle was made of. That's really good. So yeah, you can do bright weld beads on rust. So anything that a railroad modeler would do, same rules apply really.
Right, right. Dwight at Northern Star Railroad says, I see I see Florey's models in England do a lot of military / airplane models. Paul Bretland at ISMUMP do mostly cars. He says, I've learned a lot from them on airbrushing. You know?
Yeah. So that's another channel. So I tend to loosely follow a lot of modeling channels, and kind of I don't deliberately follow them because I find that it's good just to kind of do my not do my own thing, but just sort of just concentrate on what I want to do, and then dip in and out on other things. But yeah, YouTube's fantastic at the moment for following modelers, and that's another good channel that people should enjoy.
Absolutely. I agree. The technology, I mean, 25, 30 years ago, we would never have this ability to do what we're doing right now.
No, I mean, it's, I remember when I started, it was just basic kits from basic manufacturers. Verlinden was the sort of exotic accessory supplier. And that was it. And paints were limited as well. Now it's just, I mean, it's almost excessive, to be honest. I don't know how they can all sustain themselves with so many products and things, but they seem to. So, yeah, it's amazing, really.
In doing the modeling that you do, how is it that you approach the modeling? Yeah,
chaotically, mostly. I mean, the channel means that I start a lot of projects. So if you've seen any of my recent over COVID videos, I've got a lot of shelf queens or unfinished projects. That's mainly because I start them to film something and then never finish them, or I will finish them, but it'll take a lifetime, but I will finish them. So I'm somewhat chaotic. Sometimes I'll come back to a semi-finished project, like I just did. The ACAV is a good example. I've stopped buying kits at the moment because I've just got so many that I haven't built, and there's just no point really. If I gave up work and spent the next 20 years modeling, I probably still wouldn't finish my stash. So
that's so true. We interviewed a gentleman I think about 5-6 years ago. His name was Bud Ellis. He was a car modeler. He would model cars, every type of car. Muscle cars, vintage cars. He would model them. And when we did the interview, I asked him, how many models do you have? And he turned his camera around, and the length of his basement wall from one end to the other and up to down.
Yeah, I can believe it.
And he said, I will never do any of these models.
Yeah,
I'll never do them. In my lifetime, I could never do them. So
I do honestly get an urge to build something. So, you know, there might be an aircraft or a ship model, and I really have to just kind of remind myself that I probably, you know, after the initial urge is gone, I probably won't finish it. So there's no point spending the money. But generally, it may be a movie or a piece of archive film or something will inspire me, and I'll start something new. But it just depends, really.
And doing the bust and the figures, how is it? I have to say that I myself find it amazing. I watched you do the soldiers on the recent Vietnam era thing, and even on the civilian. I found it amazing how you came up with like using different colors to get the flesh tones just at that moment, and I was like,
yeah.
Hey, how did you learn to do that?
Well, I basically just learned just to try things out, really, and then you get a level of confidence. Once it doesn't go terribly wrong, you follow the broad technique and just repeat, you know, rinse and repeat, but change the references slightly. Yeah, the figure painting and busts particularly were an experiment initially, and I really enjoy them. The advantage for the channel particularly is that a bust can be finished relatively quickly compared to a tank or a more intricate model. So that's why I initially sort of showed a few more busts, and then I just really enjoy them. I enjoy figure painting surprisingly more than I thought I would. And the basic acrylic techniques, once you've got the hang of it, you can apply to any manufacturer. And the broad kind of theory of it works, you know?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. For you guys out there that are tuning in, again, I just want to reiterate here that we are doing a special on Model Railroading Live, special edition on Who's Big Bill Talking To. We're talking with Martin Hughes of Scale War Machines. That's his YouTube channel. And also the same goes for his website, scalewarmachines.com. You guys can check most of his stuff there and see what he's building. Yeah. The reason why for the 3 p.m. start here is that Martin is from England, and it's nighttime over there. So we didn't want to do this at 9 p.m. and it'd be 3 a.m. at his time.
Yeah. Yes, that I wouldn't have been particularly alert at that time.
Yeah. So stuff like that. What do you do with your finished models?
I just at the moment they're all in boxes because of kind of work being done where I live. I keep them. I don't sell them. I increasingly try and find new and novel ways to create space to put them in. That's basically it.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of a good friend of mine has given me some display cases, and they're wall mounted, which is brilliant. So as I renovate the workshop that we're in now, I shall have more wall mounted space for display cabinets, which will be really good.
Good. I watch Plasmo.
Oh right, yes, yeah.
He's from Germany, and I found out. I sent him an email one time, and I asked him how he was able to secure when he was doing a Messerschmitt plane, and I asked him how he obtained his decals, because I understand that. Hey, Andrew, I should have learned. And Martin, this is Andrew Crawford.
Hello, Andrew. Hi.
And he, because in Germany you can't get kind of decals for the German army back in World War II.
Ah, okay.
So he had to send to England to get them shipped to Germany, which I thought.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. But watching him build his models and stuff like that, it was pretty amazing because you know, the detailed work and
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
Very
basically,
good.
yeah, it was like when I was watching you do the bust, you
Yeah.
know, on the thing, I was amazed at the detail on the chain mail and everything that went into it was like,
Well, yeah, I mean, but ultimately, the thing about a bust is the credit really has to go to the sculptor, because the better the sculpt, the easier it is to paint effectively. And that was a particularly nice sculpt. And Young Miniatures, I've been lucky enough to paint a few of their products, and you know, fantastic product, makes painting it considerably easier.
yeah,
The chainmail detail on that, I remember, was spectacular.
yeah, okay, not a problem, we're cool, stuff like that. Uh, and now you said you like model railroading, but you don't have the
I
space.
do. I do. If I had the time and the space, I think I'd have a little layout somewhere. I think
I
if
was
I could.
Yeah, I was telling one of our cohorts here at the MRL that I was going to interview you, and I said to him, he said to me, does he like model railroading? I said, yeah, he wishes he could do model railroading. He doesn't have the time or the space, and he was like, oh no, I understand the time, but the space you can find.
Yeah, I mean, I could find space, true. But yeah, the time is the problem, because I'd view it as one big diorama. And plus, there's the sort of expertise in track laying and baseboard building and stuff, and you know, electronics that I'd have to get my head around. So that would take time, certainly.
Have you ever ventured into the idea of like doing animation on some of your figures, on some of the
So what? Animate the model
figures?
itself?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
animate.
mean, it's possible. You know, there again, if I could, I would quite happily spend all day, every day, trying out stuff like that. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
we just recently had the National Model Railroad Association X series. A guy Marty Jenkins out of Australia. They just did a gentleman who builds uh, figures and he animates them.
oh
And,
right, yeah, yeah, good
yeah,
idea. Uh,
yeah,
I imagine, you know, you'd either need multiples or you know, some form of flexible figurine. But yeah, the stop motion, you know, it's been around for ages in filmmaking, and it could work really well. So you could just have blanks, you know, like blank faces, and then animate the faces. So I think that's how they did. I can't remember a famous movie, or a lot of people on YouTube when they animate Lego figures do that. They just
yeah,
animate the face. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have the that diorama you just completed on
I
hand?
do. It's behind me. I'd have to go and get it. So bear with
Sure.
me. I'll just be
Take
off
your time.
mic for a sec.
Sure. That's what.
I'll grab one thing else. Okay, I'm back.
Hello.
So
Now,
there it is.
yes. Now, yes, stop right there. You can see inside the vehicle all the
Yeah,
and the Budweiser case on the side.
yeah. And I was sent some other Budweiser. I realized afterwards I could have used those as well, but from one of my subscribers, which is one of the great things about having a YouTube channel, is contacts with people and fellow modelers. And he very kindly sent me, so Martin, his name is as well, sent me some other ones, but I should have used them in this diorama, but I didn't. So apologies to him if he's watching. These, I think, come from Plus Model, I think, or someone.
I want to ask you a question on the float, the raft on the back.
Oh, yeah, that was
How
my
did
idea. They used to have inflatable bedding in Vietnam a lot. These AFV crews would have air mattresses that they could use to have a bit of a kip, as we say, have a bit of a
yeah,
sleep. So I always thought it'd be nice to add a bit of colour. So that's what that was. And
yeah.
Yeah, I put that at the back, so you know you don't ordinarily see it. It's only if you turn the diorama around you'd see it.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, and was that you purchased that, or you did you make that?
I sculpted that from scratch.
Did you?
And then what I had to do was get the gloss finish, the kind of glossiness of plastic, and that involved lots of coats with Tamiya paints diluted with lacquer. So just effectively wet coats and polishing it until it was super shiny. And
Wow.
I was gonna mold it with a clear kind of a resin type product to have it as transparent like the transparent ones, but I just didn't have the time. Essentially, I
Right.
just had to get this out the door now because I've had enough of it and I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Let's get it completed and move on.
Exactly.
What was the easiest part about doing that diorama? What part was that? Not that it was like labor intense and I just can't, but what was the part that
Yeah.
was easiest and what was the most difficult?
Oh, yeah. Easiest. I guess just the painting. I suppose the painting's probably. The diorama was relatively easy. The terrain work. So this uses at its core foam board and a scenic mat. So I'm sure you guys encounter those in railroad modelling, which made it a lot easier. So that was relatively simple. The hardest bit was probably just finishing it. In all honesty, finishing the kit. In the first place to a level that I was satisfied with. I'm still not 100% satisfied, of course, like all modelers. There's always more that could be done. But yeah, so probably just, I guess, finishing the kit in the first place and then just making sure, because it was being effectively shown on YouTube, that I could finish this project and that it didn't become an unfinished project on YouTube. So.
Well, also to your defense, you were in the midst of remodeling your house. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. So, in between, we're in our second lockdown effectively here.
Yeah.
It's not called a lockdown. I don't follow it very closely, if I'm honest. But in between, there was a window to do quite significant work on the house I live in with my family. So yes, we did it, and. That meant considerable disruption to the YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. But it's fascinating with the tone of the skin. I just find it utterly fascinating that you making them come to life and stuff.
Well, here's one that will feature soon. That's, of course, Sean Connery, who passed away recently, sadly.
Yes.
And,
my favorite James Bond.
Exactly, and an absolutely awesome film, Bridge Too Far. So I'm rushing that through production now, so that will probably be one of the next videos out on the channel.
Uh-huh. And what was that bus taken? What movie was that taken?
That's a Bridge Too Far.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So with lots of famous actors in it.
Yes.
Including him. Hunt for Red October, yes, absolutely, and lots of famous American actors as well, of course.
Yeah,
in it as well. So, yes, that'll be a nice tribute to him, and that'll be coming out soon. But yeah, the flesh tones. I mean, it's about. I'll try and put it as close as I can. It's about just trying to get the subtle blending, I would say, and that's a technique that has evolved. I have tried different things and it has improved, I would say. Well, certainly it feels that the graduations are more subtle just by using a thick brush, really, and just blending the acrylic seems to work really well.
Right. Dwight of Northern Star Railroad, he says, where in England do you live?
I live in Hampshire, so about an hour from London in the south, so relatively near the coast. So, and I work in Southampton. So I live near there.
Okay, good, very good. Yeah, again, so you have many airbrushes and stuff.
Yeah, I've got quite a few airbrushes. I had and have quite a few compressors. So it's a bit of an affliction, really. But I'm trying to find the perfect airbrush, really. I guess is what I'm trying to do. And there are certainly some that I use over and over again, and there's some new ones that I've just got in that I bought that I'm particularly enjoying as well from America, Badger. So they're really enjoyable to use as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nathan Hunt says that the movie Hunt for Red October was the worst Russian accent I've heard of Sean Connery. Hello.
Yeah, I was watching. Obviously, when he died, there was lots of sort of commemorative, films about him, and a lot of people were just saying he was just Sean Connery, whether he was Russian or, mind you, he was a bit more Sean Connery in The Untouchables, I would say.
I think you're right in that.
He turned up the Sean Connery with a little,
yeah, he did,
little bit of an Irish sort of Scottish Celtic twang. So yeah,
he did. He absolutely did. He wasn't even. I'm a big James Bond guy. I've got all the Ian Fleming books, and
yeah,
he wasn't.
He was great. I mean, as James Bond, but he was great in many things.
Yeah, he was. I remember seeing him in a movie where he played. I forget the name of the movie where they had this big monstrous in the middle of the drill field hill that he had to climb up.
Oh yes, yeah. Is that the one with Michael Caine? Or maybe that's another. Oh no, I know the one you're talking of, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think that was The Man Who Would Be King, I think. But that's a different one. Yeah, good films, good times.
I enjoyed everything he did. I really did. I enjoyed him, and stuff. So that's good. Andy Crawford says that was a great movie. It's no Apocalypse Now, but does much of his inspiration come from the war movies, or where does his inspiration come from? Is there a particular war or period of interest that you do, basically, or just a full spectrum of?
The full spectrum, really, but the bulk of, I guess World War II is my predominant area of interest, but all partly again because of the background and what I did in my job. I covered in different ways, different conflicts. Vietnam at the moment, I'm going through a bit of a Vietnam phase, but I'm interested in all conflicts really, as sad as they are. They are very interesting, but I think World War II is an area of particular interest for me. In terms of movies, yes, I enjoy all war movies. There's certain war movies that if I start watching, I can't stop watching. So one would be something like Black Hawk Down, for example.
Right.
So I am interested in all military content, really.
Yeah.
And all films.
And your experience in doing film and doing TV shows, has it obviously it has transferred over to doing YouTube videos. Do you find yourself, I ask this to people who have YouTube channels, do you find yourself being a slave to the YouTube experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think I keep it as a hobby, I do what I can when I can, and that makes it manageable and enjoyable. I think it's easy to fall into a sort of mindset where you feel obligation, but essentially many YouTubers are just doing it out of passion and sacrificing a lot of their time. So I think it's healthy just to kind of recognize that and do what you think's manageable. I would love to do it full time and may potentially do it one day, but at the moment it's when I can. And so, yes, I think I keep it in proportion and keep it healthy. But I think lots of people perhaps don't quite realise, unless they've done a YouTube channel, of course, just how much work goes into it.
Yes, very true. Very true. Very true.
Particularly the editing and post-production, which if you want it to be even half decent, you have to put a fair amount of effort on the editing side, just to try and make the film come alive, really, rather than just be a dull sort of watching paint dry, which you can do, but people want something that's a bit more animated and interactive, so that takes time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the advent of social media, like I said earlier, has given rise to a lot of YouTube channels and where we're able to see other modelers, in N scale and I mean HO scale and scale and the big
Oh yes, yeah. I mean,
plus.
I'm the same. I get sort of shown stuff by YouTube, as we all do, suggested stuff, and I'm very happy to watch railroad content, and I enjoy that, and I can see the value of it for the side of the hobby I do, and I think it's fascinating. It's much like watching all the sort of imagination that goes into something like the interior of this vehicle is much like
Right.
the imagination I might see from a YouTube model railroad channel when they're populating a layout or a building or something
Do
like that.
you in what you're doing, do you find that there a representation of a lot of youth doing what you're?
Young people, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean there are a few, but I mean it is predominantly what people would call an old man's hobby. I think partly because it's a generational thing, and perhaps younger generations are living out those kind of fantasies, if you like, or using their imagination in gaming, maybe. So
uh-huh.
something like Call of Duty might give young boys, I guess, that sort of universe that maybe they would have got through models. It's also quite expensive, I think.
Yes.
Especially your side of the hobby. I see locomotives at £400 or what have you. So it's unimaginable for a young person to finance that. So.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. I also find that what I've come in contact with young men is it's with video games that they play. And this is basically, I guess, an editorial commentary on my end, my personal observation.
Yes, me too. I mean, it's my
You know, it's a quick.
analysis.
Right, exactly, and it's if they want a quickness. They want with video games you win automatically, so you move on and then move to the next level. Whereas here, yeah, when you tell them, well, we have to let the paint dry, and they're like,
Yeah,
what? I said, yeah, you have to let the paint dry and then you move on, and that's why you
yeah.
set up your station and you plan your workout and okay, well, this is drying. I'm going to move on to this section. I'm going to do this, and they're like, no, I don't think I can do that.
But there's probably a comparable amount of time that they sink into gaming that is probably equivalent to what a modeler would sink into modeling. So you can get carried away and work up levels and all the rest of it. I was very conscious that whilst I found that whole thing really exciting and interesting, I was very conscious that if I got into it, it would take up even more time and I wouldn't be able to do my modeling and other hobbies. So I've avoided gaming out of fear that I'd like it too much. So I've sort of stopped doing it.
Yeah, I particularly don't do it myself because I got everything is a thumb on these little fat fingers. So I just
Mm.
my
Well,
son, let's play NFL, Dad, and I'm like, okay, and then he's like, takes me to the woodshed and beats me senseless. You know,
yeah,
no mercy for my own kid.
I
Uh,
hear you.
Eric
But
Cole. No, go
uh,
ahead. Go ahead.
well, I've got a question for you. So, my question was a very simple one, really. Is I've sort of reviewed products that are made by manufacturers who cater to the model railroad sector. I've subscribed to a few channels myself, so I particularly enjoy Everard Junction. And who else do you recommend as a channel?
I would recommend. I would Ron Marsh, Ron's Trains and Things.
Okay.
Ron's Trains and Things. I would recommend him. I would recommend uh, Miles Hale. He's
Ah, yes, I think. Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of him.
he's a Ralph Renzetti. I'm mentioning because these are the guys off the top of my head.
Of course.
and a couple of other. Oh, there's a great guy, Thomas Klemensky,
Okay.
a Northern Georgia Railroad layout. That is, he's more in operations, but his layout is very well detailed. And then there's always George Celios.
Okay.
George Celios is the absolute epitome of in fact, Rod Stewart, which by the way we were supposed to have Rod Stewart on, but we don't have enough time for him, so we have to.
Oh, that's all right. If he's watching, hi Rod, big fan.
Yeah, big fan too, big fan. So, but he went to see George Celios. George Celios, I believe, lives in Maine, and he went to visit him. And George Celios is an older man, and it was fun to watch the video because Rod Stewart was totally enthralled by the layout and was simply like literally gushing that he met Celios. And you can see George,
that comes across with Rod. He's well, it's like everyone. When you get the bug, you get the bug. It doesn't matter whether you're.
But the amazing thing was watching George Celios was like, why are all these cameras and people videotape? Who is this guy? Like George Celios didn't know who.
Good.
Was. Nice. He was like, well, what? He's just another model railroader that asked to see my layout. I granted permission. So who is this guy? And there's dude with his spiked hair and his pink shirt, his collar, like he's like looking in and asking, and very well.
But good for him. It's I'm sure anyone like that appreciates the sheer pleasure that comes from these hobbies and building these things, and the peace of mind, the tranquility, the serenity that comes from it is really important.
Absolutely. The other guy I'd recommend is the guy that's on now. It's IMRRO.com, Eric Hall. He has an N scale layout, but a pretty well, good looking.
Good. Well, I'll have to watch this back and listen to those names.
I will absolutely send it to you. Email and send their links to you so that you can check it out.
That'll be good.
Yeah. Who? Oh, right. He lives near Boston, right?
Okay.
Let's see. Andy Crawford, the 135 military railroad models from Trumpeter have been an interest to Andy. Have you looked at a crossover of war modeling and the railroads connected to conflicts, especially for World War II?
So what, a crossover with what you do and what I do? So kind of military railroad layouts? Is that what it was? Yeah, I'd love to. I think if I did a railway layout, it would probably be in the war years, possibly, or maybe the 60s, 70s. I don't know. There would probably be a military dimension to it somewhere, something. Yeah. Just because that's what I do. There'd certainly be lots of weathering. I love your layout, Bill, because of the potential for kind of gritty urban sort of decay and rust and stuff. So maybe something urban and decayed as well. I'm not sure, but the more weathered, the better.
Yes, the more decrepit looking, the beautiful. Yeah. It's so ugly, it's pretty.
Exactly. There's a beauty in patina, isn't it? Is that what people call it?
Yes. I agree with you. Nathan Hurt says this question is aimed at both of you. Do you remember the model you had that you got into in model building? He said mine was a Spitfire 172nd when I was a kid.
Same for me. It was a Spitfire. I think it was 172nd. Almost certainly Airfix. Almost certainly. I remember it very well. There's a picture of me somewhere, and funny enough, there's a picture of me which I discovered and showed somebody, which was very amusing, of me with a diorama when I was about, I'd say 11, and it's got lots of 1/72nd scale, a bit of a mishmash of sort of German and Allied stuff, and it's this hobby has been there all the time, since then. It's never gone away.
Yeah, and. Andy Crawford says, which he's brought up, but really too good, is Luke Towan.
Ah, yes, yeah.
The obvious one. And there's another gentleman, Rob Bennett, His channel is Steve Bennett.
Oh, okay.
Steve is really a good modeler, and the good thing about Steve and most of the guys I mentioned is that they're not overly, I guess the word is egotistical, where they're not, this is the way I do it, and this is the way you should do it. They say, this is how I do it. And if you desire to do it, it's good, which makes you feel, pretty.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to teach, isn't it? Is to teach by example, but not necessarily expect people to adhere to it. It's just, I guess, demonstrating techniques, and then people can find their own way.
Right, exactly. I remember a gentleman. I did one of my videos on doing a roof. What I did was I found some sandpaper that were cut in the sheets, and I sprayed them black, and I put them on, and it looked like gravel roof. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you think I could use that idea that you just did on your video?" And I said, "Use it. I stole it from somebody."
Yeah, well, that's the same, Or what I would say is the most formative modeler for me when I was younger, and who I think was way ahead of his, because every generation there's a kind of, I don't know if it's the same in your field, but there's a kind of superstar modeler.
Oh, and, yes.
For me, it was Francois Verlinden, without question. He was doing stuff years ago that was kind of way ahead of the game, and it was the precursor of all the sort of elaborate techniques. I mean, they're simple by comparison, but the goal was the same, and he was achieving that many decades ago. That would be what, 80s, so quite a few years ago now. Right. And of course, subsequently, we have in the military modelling field, we have sort of superstar modellers like MiG and stuff who are very famous, who've taken it even further. But I'd say the first one for me was Francois Verlinden, very much, just and so inspiring.
And what was his the gentleman you just mentioned? What was his modeling? What did he model?
Well, he did military subjects, and he's a Belgian modeler, and he moved his whole business to the States, over to you guys, quite a few years ago, and they stopped their business, I think in 3 or 4 years ago, let's say. But he was a huge name, and I think what he was doing was essentially, it was all military, but he was starting the kind of three-dimensional weathering technique that we all know and love, and the sort of depth, shadow, highlight approach in kind of the weathering. You can see the kind of first steps in techniques that everyone uses nowadays. So that's really what he was doing, and dioramas as well. Really amazing dioramas.
So I can see your point, and it's just always amazing to me that that you do something on your layout or on your modeling, and you think, "Wow, I just found this out," and then you just go and see someone else's video or read an article, and you're like, "Oh, it's been done before,"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Although occasionally you come up with, there are modelers who definitely come up with the first time anyone's ever done it. Or seemingly at least that they've talked about it publicly.
Andy Crawford says, "We are all just experimenters, and even the things that work best for me, I'm still pretty confident that there are better ways. I just haven't found them yet. So I understand confidence, but not pretension." Because in his previous comment, he says, pretentiousness is the word, I think, that's the thing that bugs me the most about some modelers who have found some small bit of notoriety in our niche hobby.
Yeah, well, it's just a hobby, I don't take it very seriously. I don't pretend that I'm sort of, as you said, saying this is the way it must all be done. I mean, I'm quite open about it. I experiment a lot, and I just feel, I've done enough years now that I feel I'm not afraid to experiment with the cameras rolling, as it were. Because generally, I think the big discovery in it for any modeler is the ability to pull something back and recover it. So the ability to repair to kind of have the knowledge to know how to repair or cover something up or undo it is really important, and to have the confidence to do that comes from just doing enough models, really doing lots and lots of models. You know that you can always pull it back or undo it. The secret really, and this applies to your hobby as well, I would say, is to seal things with some sort of varnish product. Generally, you can experiment quite freely then, knowing that there's enough protection underneath to remove whatever you're trying to do.
Right. And it's also weathering hides a lot of imperfections.
It does, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not overly obsessed about detail. I'm not overly obsessed about accuracy. I just like things to look good. So I'm like a superficial modeler, really. For me, it's about they're little works of art, and they reflect the style of the artist. They don't have to be perfect, and imperfection is beautiful in itself. So it's kind of, it's just having fun, really. I think if you become pretentious and you're sort of high and mighty about it, then that's just ridiculous. That's taking away the pleasure that other people could potentially feel. I don't think the hobby should be elitist at all. If we want to encourage people to come into it, we need to kind of take them under your wing and help them.
I agree with you 100%. I remember when I got started in this hobby, I was in a model railroading club out here in Staten Island, and I was given the task of making trees. I was shown how to make a tree, and then I went about making the tree. And there was a guy, a little older man than I am. His name was Eric, and nice guy, really nice guy, and a real proficient and modeler, and really did a good work. And he came over to me and he said, "Hey kid," he says, "I'm not here to tell you how to make a tree, but that tree's not right." I'm like, "Why?" And he says, "Because they're too straight." He says, "Come with me, step outside." So we went outside, and we were in our model railroading club was inside a cultural center, and it was all these art exhibits and everything that was going on. So he walked me outside, and there was trees in the headline, and he said, "Look at those trees." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do they look perfect?" I said, "Well, no, not really." He said, "So why would you want to make a perfect tree?" And that was a big lesson. That may sound really small, but I went back and I said, that's absolutely right. If there's a mistake, it really isn't a mistake, because it is what it is. It's part of, and it's the same thing like when I build a building or structure, and it's like my wife is my best critic, and she'll come in and she'll say, "Well, why did you do that?" Well, because foundation has a way of settling, and then you get this crack across the mortise, and she'd be like, "Oh, that would, And you're trying to do that, trying to replicate that as best you can."
And I think that's the mark of success, really. If you have other kind of modelers scrutinizing a model, and they sort of go, that works. I haven't really, I can see what you're trying to do there, or that's convincing, then that's good enough for me. I think, there are people who will never be happy and who will always argue about, it gives us something to sort of discuss and argue about. One of the revelations for me has been, this used to be for me a hobby I just did other than YouTube. So I guess I was doing it with people, but online. A real revelation for me was joining a model club, which I did quite late in life. So, and that's been really enjoyable. And it's encouraged me to do a lot more, to experiment, to do different things, but also having those interactions with other modelers has been really good. And of course, now it's sad that we haven't been able to meet since March, of course, due to the current situation.
Yeah, it is. And Andy Crawford says that's what moves us all ahead. Someone somewhere decided that automotive customizers' use of static charge interior flocking could be used to recreate grass, and we're all better for it. Yes, so one hobby that's with another hobby.
Absolutely.
And getting back to what you're saying in the model railroading, your model club, building club, there's also a social aspect to that.
There is, and that again, when you're someone like me, I've never entered competitions, or I've never done a magazine type stuff, or So the only kind of forum of public critiquing, if you like, is the Model Club. And there again, I didn't actually know whether the models would be well received or not. And it was, of course, it was a really welcoming and a nice club. So of course they were. But yes, that social aspect is important. A little bit of competition with your friends as well pushes you to maybe churn out a few more models for club night than you ordinarily would. And that's good for me because it gives me content for the website. And
I think it also does something too. I think it also gives us confidence.
Yeah, I agree. And so does YouTube, in fairness. If someone's thinking of doing a model YouTube channel, then I think you should do it, because you'll find that, of course, there are people who are negative, but the overwhelming majority of people are supportive. And it does help build confidence, a bit like going to a model club might do for someone if you're thinking of doing that, or a railroad model club or whatever.
I remember early on, I was encouraged by a couple of gentlemen in the club who have since gone on to get their certificates in master model railroading. And, I was encouraged to build for a competition, scratch build of a building. And I did so, but I entered the contest and I didn't really achieve winning or getting any kind of special recognition for being in the contest. But what I did gain out of it was the men that were also entered, who were a lot better than I was, were very encouraging to me and gave me like, hey, this is how I would have done it, and this is and the beauty of it was we explored the approach to building it.
Yeah.
Like what did you do? What the tools did you use? Hey, this is the tool I use. It makes life a lot easier, and and going forward, and that interaction and that kind of give back, like I always say this, like if you go to a hobby shop and they're like, there's a particular hobby shop here in the city, you go, they want to sell you quality, they want to give you quantity, they want to get the product out the door. And I go to a small hobby shop in the state of New Jersey, and the guy will give me $3,000 worth of information.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I'm ready to make that significant purchase, I'll go back to that guy.
Yes, of course.
But
I do think a lot of people now are, and that's the positive aspect of something like YouTube, are accessing tutorials, if you like, or videos explaining things. So that's a positive side. But you're right. I think there's two kind of dimensions to it. Or two experiences. One experience, as you say, could be going to a shop or a competition or whatever, and coming up against a wall of kind of, someone, the keeper of the scrolls of the secret techniques of modeling, or, you find people who are supportive and, unafraid to share. And that's what really works the best, whether that's on YouTube, in a model shop, in a model club or whatever. And that's so important, because it can be really hard to know how to start or what to do, or what techniques to use. So that's really important.
Yeah. Nathan Hurd says, I customize toys, etc. But some of the tricks used to work well with some of the tricks I use work well with models, such as using liquid shoe polish works well for highlights and weathering with it.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd be happy to give that a go. Yeah,
give that a shot.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, Ralph Franzetti, we call him, his nickname with us is the Mud Father, because he's very much the weathering mud, rust, and make it as decrepit as possible. But he's like all the time saying, lead pencil.
Yeah, and I'm looking for something. This is a good technique. Using one of these. Have you ever seen one of these? It's like a paper pencil.
Yeah.
And you can put graphite on the end like that, and that's also good for metallic stuff as well. So I don't know what they're called. They're called like a stump pen or something, but they're just made out of paper, and they're really good for for weathering. That's right. Yeah, they're a blending pencil, I think, for fine art. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really good as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Ralph is good like that. Ralph is the guy that holds the scrolls, you know.
Ah, he's the keeper of the scrolls. Well,
He's the
there's
keeper of
always
the.
one. There's always one.
Yeah, it's always interesting because he's always willing to, like, you know, like, what was it the other day we had a discussion. Let me see if I can get it. We were talking about uh, instant set for the accelerator for glues.
Ah, okay.
You use this to do it, and it's a
Yeah.
spray pump bottle. So I was telling Ralph about this, and Ralph's going, what are you doing? He says, what you want to do is you want to take this off, and he says, you see that little tube?
Yeah.
There's a little drop there, and all you do is place it over the thing and just let it drop, and it's
That's a good one.
And you won't waste it all on the.
That's what I need to do with this.
Yeah, exactly. So he comes up with those little tips, and he's like,
that's a good one.
Yeah, see? Look at that. We just learned something.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's great.
The longer we live, the more we learn.
You never stop learning, that's for sure.
Yeah, the paper pencil. Oh, Nathan Hurd says the paper pencil is called a tortillion.
Oh, okay.
Called a tortillion. Tortill.
Yeah. For some reason, I only know the French word because when I first discovered these, it was in a fantastic French model magazine that has been a huge inspiration for me because one of my parents is French, so I've spent a lot of time in France, and it's called an estompe in French. That's all I know, but I haven't found the English word, so there you go.
Estompe, okay.
Estompe.
Estompe. Okay.
Yeah. And that makes sense. It says stump on it, so that's kind of like estompe in French. So
have you used the new pencil sets that come out?
No, I've got some. They're queued. They're somewhere on my shelves, and I will be using them soon. I've got the ones from AK. Yeah. So I'll be using those soon. Yeah.
Andy Crawford says, yes, indeed, Nathan. I used to use Indian ink, but I've fallen in love with shoe dyes, most especially for useful in scenery and structure treatments.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Dilute it with alcohol and stuff like that and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds a good plan.
Hunterline weathering.
Okay.
Yeah, Hunterline. You should Hunterline. Check them out. They sell.
Okay.
I'll send that link to you too.
Yeah, do. I'd be interested to see that.
Hunterline. They're pretty good. So, well, Martin, I want to thank you very much for being a part of this show and taking
my pleasure.
Your busy schedule. And I know it's Saturday night there and taking time away from your family. And it was great to have you on. It was great to have you on.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. Thank you again so much. You guys out there, this has been a special edition of Who's Big Bill Talking To on Model Railroading Live. And again, we apologize to Sir Rod Stewart. We were supposed to get you on, Rod, with this fellow Englander from the UK, but unfortunately we ran out of time. And
some other time.
Yes, we'll try on the next Who's Big Bill Talking To. And the next one that Big Bill Talking To will be December 2nd, I believe, next week. And it will be with James Powell. James Powell is a gentleman who works in the movie industry, actually, and design sci-fi stuff and other stuff for opening businesses and storefronts. So we'll have him on. That's next Wednesday, the 2nd of December at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So,
sounds good.
Again, and
thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks for getting the opportunity to share techniques. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, it's his YouTube channel is called Scale War Machines, and that's also his website, scalewarmachines.com. Go check him out, subscribe to him. Give him a thumbs up. Let him know that you saw him on the MRL channel and stuff like that. So in the meantime, you guys out there, you be well, be safe, and be blessed. And we'll see you on the radio. Take care. God bless them.
Take care. Bye-bye.